Right, so here we're going to go take these styles and move them over to our separate style sheet. Okay, so let's think about what we're going to name these styles. This one we could easily name header. Okay, so if we wanted to, we could just come in here, give this a, call it a class. You can use a class or ID. Actually, both will do the same thing. I typically like to use class just because I'm used to using that. So let's go ahead and call this one header. Okay, and let's go to our website.css file and create a new class. Now, a class always begins with a period and then the name, header. Whereas an ID would be the pound sign or hash followed by a header. Okay, in this case it's going to be the period because it's a class and not an ID. Okay, we're going to open our brackets. I like to close my bracket so I can just work in these and then my syntax is always accurate. Okay, let's go ahead and grab these styles from the header class. I'll go ahead and cut those. Alright, bring them in here. And then just to keep your code pretty clean, I like to just bring these all onto their own lines. I'm going to save that, go to my index file, and I'll delete this style portion. So now you can see, compared to this line that's so much longer, we basically just have just the short descriptor right here calling our header class. Go ahead and save that. And then when I click here, you can see this is in place. This is intact. Okay, so that's the process we're going to use. Now, the reason that this website CSS file is interacting with our HTML file is because we've linked to it right here in the head area of our HTML file. We've linked to it with a type text CSS link, and it's a style sheet, and here it is in our CSS folder called website.css. So you could have multiple CSS files interacting with different portions of your code. In this case, we just have one CSS file. So let's go ahead and complete our work here. We're going to call this one navigation or nav. I'll go ahead and call it nav. Okay, and just for time's sake, I'm going to copy this header class. On a new line, I'm going to paste it, and I'm going to just say nav. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is copy the styles, copy the style, well, cut it actually, and then paste it in here. Again, I'll go ahead and clean this up, just put it on separate lines so it's easy to read. And now we just delete the style, and we can continue doing this. So there, we've just cleaned up our code dramatically. You can just imagine if this is a full design with lots and lots of different elements, how busy your code could get, and we've already cleaned it up so much just on 2 lines. Okay, now this particular one, this divider line, I'm actually going to call it that. I'm going to call it class divider line. I like to use underscores because then you can double click and select the whole thing. Okay, and then what we'll do is we will just copy this, go to divider line, and now what we're going to do is copy our style once again, and we're going to paste it in place of that. Right, so now we have this, all these elements, all these styles controlled in a separate area. So let's go ahead and we will delete that old style code. I'm going to go ahead and just copy this and replace the one below. Remember, we had in 2 places. Right, okay, so now we've got both divider lines. Now this is the beauty of the style sheet. You can go, let's say we wanted to take these divider lines, change the color, and then make the line thicker. We now can do that in a separate style sheet, and it'll affect both instances of this divider line. Let's go to website.css. Let's make this height 6 pixels. I'm going to change the margin to 10 at the top and 10 at the bottom. And I'll change the background color to something pretty obvious. I'll just use this kind of like a lime green. Let's go back. Well, there we go. We've just made our change to our divider line quite easily. And that is the beauty of the external cascading style sheet. I'll show you a couple more things that you can do, and then we'll conclude this tutorial and basically end with you having a better idea of why we use style sheets and why they're such an advantage they give you in your coding. Okay, so let's go ahead and change a couple of things in this body tag. Right here, for the whole document, we can change our font. So let's go ahead and let's just change it to Arial. Okay, let's change the font size to 14 pixels. And let's go ahead and make our margin for the whole document 0 pixels. Alright, now you'll see what that does. My margin is now 0, so all of my elements are now being lined up with the edge. Now if I change my margin to 60, you'll see now that there's a nice margin around the entire document. So you can see how style sheets control a whole lot of things, not just your areas in your div. Now you can see my font has changed, my font size has changed. You can do so much in style sheets. So that concludes this just basic intro to cascading style sheets. I will cover a lot more on cascading style sheets in future tutorials, but this just gives you a basic startup of what you can do with it and why you want to keep your styles relatively out of your HTML document or PHP document, whatever you're working in. Keep them in your style sheets and then just reference them in your head tag. So I hope you enjoyed this beginning tutorial, and check out our other tutorials, and we'll see you in the future.